So my hard work has not been correlated to whether I'm an entrepreneur or working in an organization. And therefore, I feel that the consistent beats the spiky.
Yeah.
So if you're like consistently hardworking, then there is more chances of hitting the luck and more chances of you beating someone who can work hard for 3 days and then he has to lays off, right? So you've got to figure out creating your team so that like somebody who enjoys doing this, somebody who enjoys doing this, because like if they enjoy doing that, which is the happiness definition, they'll become better at
Yeah.
it, and then you can push them to become better at it, and that's how you create a better company, and that's how you create a large company. So
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask a massive favor of you guys. At the moment, we're putting a big priority on growing our YouTube channel. So if you aren't already subscribed to us there, if you could head over to YouTube, type in the Quest for Success podcast, or just click the link down in the show notes below, head over to our channel and subscribe to us there. You'll get access to all of our video interviews that we do with our guests. And it will do us a massive favor because it will help us grow the show, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode. All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thanks so much for tuning in once again. Today, we're incredibly excited because, as you know, we've had on a few millionaires, a few billionaires on the podcast, but today is a milestone for us because we have on our first ever unicorn. And for those of you who don't know what a unicorn is, it's someone who founds a company and takes it all the way through to a $1 billion plus valuation. So it's an incredible milestone. And today on the show, we're joined by Rahul Garg.
Yeah, Rahul could be a unicorn, but he's one of my good friends. I met Rahul at Harvard Business School. He's someone I look up to. It's always someone that I can ask question and always willing to help you with anything. So thank you, Rahul, joining us on our Quest for Success podcast.
no, my pleasure. I think for all the weeks and evenings we spent together, I mean, like anything that you need. So happy to be on the show and excited to have this conversation.
So, Rahul, this conversation is all about success. And so we really need to start with something fundamental. And that is, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting question, and many times we don't kind of ask ourselves as much what does success mean to us. But I think for me, success actually starts with like happiness. I mean, what makes you happy, right? Because eventually, uh, if you're happy, you will do what you need to do, what you want to do, and then it will lead to success in whatever definition you want to have, right? Success can be financial, success can be intellectual, success can be spending time with family. I mean, like, so
Mm-hmm.
therefore, for me, the index the is more happiness, and therefore, when I think about success, I mean, like my son just got into like USC. I mean, like that's like
Amazing.
much more exciting form of sort of like seeing your kid go to a good school and things like that. So I mean, like those are moments of happiness. Now you're juggling through multiple things. But I also think the second aspect for me is, at least personally, has been about impact. And the impact to me comes in two, three different shapes or forms, because when people think of typically impact only in sometimes like what is the philanthropy you're doing. But I think in the context of India in particular, which I'm very passionate about building from India, it is about like job creation, economic development. I feel the best form of philanthropy in a country like India is job creation. If
Mhm.
you're able to contribute towards that, that has a much more significant impact on the society versus saying like I gave you food for 1 day or food for like few days or
Yeah.
things like that, right? Because there's a linearity to it. Like after 3 days, I mean, like the guy maybe again not having food, right? So
Mhm.
now if you're providing food, it fundamentally means like we have 2,000 direct employees, and there's probably several thousands of people that we touch in different shapes or forms as suppliers, customers, things like that, right? Now I start to think about like these are the families that you have impacted. And then
Mhm.
their economic development has impacted probably their next generation as well, right? I mean, like they probably go to better schools, they think of better colleges, all of those, right? And I'm not saying we're the only one, but like anybody who is able to create impact in their own shape or form about like is all about job creation. And the third, obviously, there is a dimension of what can you do beyond job creation for the society. I mean, like those are the places you want to think about. There are so many sort of like challenges in a developing country like India. Like how do you think about solving for healthcare? How do you solve for environment related stuff? I mean, like so for me, the success therefore is about happiness, which to me the is about personal, family, near and dear ones, followed by economic impact
Yeah.
and followed by the societal impact in the various shapes or forms that we kind of talk about it.
I like that very holistic definition of success. And I suppose for us to understand the man who's sitting in front of us, we need to kind of take a step back and go to your early childhood. Can you walk us through your early life and how you think it's shaped who you've become today?
Yeah, so I come from a very humble family. I mean, I think my dad's generation, which is like um kind of seven siblings, they all uh, sort of during the entire uproot of uh, the landowners system and all. I mean, pretty much my grandfather started from ground zero again in Delhi, and but he had that one mission that like I want to educate my kids. And even though he was not as well educated because he was all into the agrarian economy, I mean, he made sure that my dad and all the siblings either became engineers or doctors. I mean, like, so my dad graduated in 69 from BITS, one of the, again, renowned. So, and then he basically was professionally sort of literally growing up. And I grew up in a city called Faridabad. And therefore, I think my entire, and as a kid, you don't sort of probably analyze it. You just go through life
Mm-hmm.
and then you reflect back and say like, okay, like what did I get out of it? And what were those sort of like small conversations here and there, and the various choices that you were making, how are they shaping you? Like, so I think few of them kind of stand out. Like, I think it was a very strong sense of like we are a family which likes to live together, stay together, because we think again it's like uh, a fundamental definition of happiness. Like you don't want to
Mm.
be staying away and saying like if something happens, then you have the economic means to provide for. Because we think that's not the key thing. I mean, like that togetherness is a more important feeling that is there versus the fact that you may be working remotely and you may spend thousands of dollars or whatever, right? Because that's not the same thing. That's not life, that is not happiness, right? So I think that very strong came out in subtle ways, I think, growing up as a family, that the family therefore becomes supreme, and staying together is
Mm.
kind of a cool thing to do, even if you stay like maybe like a couple of kilometers away here or there, but like staying together in some
Mhm.
shape or form. The second thing I realized that as a kid, I was a very sports kid, so I used to play, and I think sports is extreme form of building character and building some kind of, I would say, it gives both highs and lows, because you win some, you lose some. I mean, like you kind of every time you win some, you meet someone who like literally crushes you, right? So it is a humbling moment that you go through, right? Like somebody is better, and like you need to work hard, and then again it's like very individual thing. So you can't sort of like have a shortcut to it. I mean, like you have to really work hard to win, right? I mean, there's no other way, right? I mean, because it's a
Yeah.
very so I think I grew up in a again environment where I was like extreme sports kid. I used to play. I was uh, captain of many sports, whether it's basketball, football, athletics, TT. Surprisingly, not as much cricket for me personally, because I was like I can't like stand for like I have to be active playing every single minute of the game. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what sportsmen thing for me was, right? So I have to play every minute. So that does not happen in cricket all the time. So I think that was again second thing, which I thought was both. I mean, kind of competing and working towards, but also like being humbled by various things and various people who are better, talented, or working hard. And the third thing is, I think the love for engineering, maths. I think that got developed probably intrinsically. I would say, while the environment is like we are a family of engineers. My dad is engineer, my sister is engineer, I'm engineer. So I mean, like maybe there's a some amount of element there, but like invariably I was extremely good at maths. I could like spend night outs solving maths problems, and I wouldn't get bored of it, right? So I mean, like that's probably the way you think about what do you love and what do you like doing. And same
Mm-hmm.
thing was for computer science as well. So I loved designing for games very early on when computers start to become available. So I think very humble. If I think sports, engineering, those were like the two things that would happen. Grew up in uh, not a very fancy school till 10th grade. It was a convent school. We were 50% taught by nuns, and therefore you also see like a very different sort of uh, cultural. I mean, like there are various nuances of those culture if you're taught by nuns and things like that. It's not very
Mm-hmm.
easy to express, but like your general sort of notion of the respect for women and various like sort of subtleties around it somewhere get ingrained in your personality, right? So yeah, so that was me growing up all the way till 10th,
Yeah.
which is the early childhood.
I guess also you learn a lot of discipline as well, working in a con like nuns around them, right? That's, I mean, obviously you're an engineer, you think everything in a process way, so that helps as well, right?
No,
More
absolutely. I mean,
discipline.
like you were kind of like inherently disciplined, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
you're like, and you didn't need like you're never going to be like rebellious per se, right? So I don't think they teach you rebel aspects in any shape or form. And but for that expression, and again, because 11th 12th I went to a non-convent school because my school was still
Uh-huh.
10th, and I realized that there was like a different culture, right? Because like the teachers are kind of different, and your ability to express yourself or maybe like fight
Mhm.
over it, I mean, like I think there the respect levels with the teacher was very different. Like you'll have that distance, they will have that distance, and then the way you interact or conduct yourself in the class or inside the school premises, or even if you conducted yourself not very well outside the school premises, those things mattered. And let's say the school I went to in 11 12, those things didn't matter as much, right? So
Mhm,
you
mhm.
kind of
Mm.
see the difference that there is, and therefore the character building becomes very interesting. So, for
Yeah.
example, in 10th grade, I spent 3 days along with students from various parts of the country, which was somewhere around this moral education. We used to have this book which we used to be taught on moral education, like character building kind of. I don't know whether I mean it's taught anymore, but we had some kind of mechanism where these concepts of like what does it mean to be truthful, what does it mean to be having integrity. I mean, like those things were getting taught. Those things were getting talked about. I mean, I'm not sure every school actually does it, and maybe that had some role to play. Because for me, anything which I mean, like you have those triggers in life. So like, if something is like non-integrity, it just triggers something in my head, right? Like
Mhm,
how the
mhm.
hell can you even do this or think about it like that, right? So maybe there was this element of righteousness which got
Mhm,
ingrained, I guess,
mhm.
early in the life as well.
So Rahul, I know you ended up at Google, heading up the ad exchange there. I want to understand the journey between, that young Rahul who's interested in computer science and ending up at Google. How did that happen?
That's a very long journey because like I went to like IIT Kanpur in between. I mean like 11th, 12th, I had to like work my ass off to get there. You also realize again the like however you can be good in your school, in your district. I was both the district topper and probably the second best ranker in the history of the district in the
Wow.
JE exam, right? So it's like 30 year of history. Maybe we didn't know anyone who got to that rank,
Amazing.
and the only guy I knew was a urban legend, right? So and now I know him. He's also done exceptionally well in Silicon Valley, but like, but then you realize there are people who are going to be better. They might be better because they spend more time. They got access to certain better teachers, or they just perform better on that day. I mean, like all of those combination, right? So um, So IT Kanpur was there, and then I spent 9 years in semiconductor across different organizations. Then I went to the business school. Actually, the first business school I went to was ISB, where I said like I want
Nice.
to learn sales and marketing. And post the sales and marketing sort of degree, I said I want to learn sales. I want to go and join a technology company, which where I can do sales. Google obviously is the best company in the world, probably at that point in time. I would probably challenge, maybe still it is the best company. I mean, there will be some contenders, but I guess it's among the top few companies from the product technology product perspective, and go and do sales there. Yeah, so that's what happened.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I think that was one reason I went from technology to business school to actually going towards sales, because I realized that you can't easily become or succeed as an entrepreneur if you didn't understand the nuances beyond technology into
Yeah.
sales, marketing, finance, and things like that.
So Rahul, you're an engineer. You're coming from engineering background. Your family background is all engineers. Why you decided that you wanted to learn sales?
Yeah, only to become an entrepreneur, because I realized that I tried doing a startup and I didn't understand sales. So, like, I didn't had a good starting point. Like, what do I do? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can build a product, but like,
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, how to sell, how to go knock on the doors and kind of like get those fancy purchase orders so that I can go build a product, right? So,
Yeah.
so my entire sort of like pivot at the age of 30. So at the age of 30, I was probably the youngest and one of the most celebrated researcher in semiconductor, because I'd filed 16 patents and like was very well regarded at that point in time. But I said like I want to become an entrepreneur, and I don't know
Uh,
sales.
Yeah, explain to us what do you mean by semiconductors? Like, you mentioned 9 years. Sorry, maybe Dylan probably know better, but yeah, what's that mean?
So after so I did electronics and
Yeah.
communication from IIT Kanpur. So I wanted to design wireless systems. So
Okay.
I joined multiple companies in the area of semiconductor, designing wireless LAN systems, satellite receivers, 4G cell phones, XDSL. So I ended up
All right.
designing many of these products that you have in your houses. And yeah, because I was the architect of that, so obviously a lot of innovation. So filing many of the patents in those areas across the companies that I worked for.
Mm.
And what drove you to want to become an entrepreneur?
Again, I don't think there is like a one mega moment which is like that, but I think it's always been there. And I think it's maybe somewhere tied to the impact. I think
Mm.
every time I think about it, I believe as an entrepreneur I can create bigger impact, which actually now is true. I mean, we just finished 10 years of Moglix. I think our ability to drive impact is like way higher than if I didn't become an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And being at Google, as you said, it's one of the top companies in the world. What was the learnings from there which kind of triggered you and you took on to Moglix when you started it?
I think there are a lot of learnings. I mean, like one, obviously, I learned a lot about internet ecosystems because I was like a semiconductor geek. So I learned about every single internet company, their business models, companies evolving in different markets in the Asian context, global context. So I think that was a very good vantage point. Second, I think when you are sort of putting yourself in a completely different functional role, like are you able to do well, are you able to succeed? So I was actually able to do extremely well, which kind of made me more confident as a sales uh, business development and those which I think also is super important when building Moglix, right? So I think that was probably the second thing. And third thing, I think uh, your when you have like the engineering confidence, you have the sales and marketing confidence. I think overall, and you have a good vantage point of how you look at world, how you look at different companies, business models, so on and so forth. So I think your ability to take bets on various ideas,
Mm-hmm.
conviction, persistence just increases, right? So I think those would be probably the top three things. And then brand
Mhm.
name helps in every shape or form. I mean, all the
Oh
companies that
yeah.
I work for, in some shape or form, play a role because um, just like your education institutes drive a certain level of credibility, the professional companies you work for drive a certain level of credibility when you go and meet people. So you're not like starting from like proving yourself that you understand the stuff, but you actually uh, have far more uh, sort of going in credibility into any conversation.
Mhm, mhm.
And I know the salaries at Google are incredible. What drove you to go away from such an incredible salary and go out on a limb and start from scratch and start Moglix?
No, so I think because the goal there was like that was a step to learn. So
Yeah.
I mean, like so it was never a goal to kind of like stay there. So that ways, I mean, like and then since that's what you so the happiness becomes then important. Like what will make you happy?
Mm,
Like
mm,
5 years, 10 years out. I mean, like you went there to do that and learn that, and then you want to do so. Like, uh, why would you compromise that? Because then you're sort of like bringing down the index of what drives happiness.
mhm.
And so you go out and you start Moglix. What gave you the idea for Moglix?
No, so good thing is, I mean, like I was fairly connected into the ecosystem, so I kind of like start to have my own opinions. What should future look like? I mean, entrepreneurship is all about taking a bet on yourself and the idea space that you believe in, which will be relevant in the future, like 10 years out, 20 years out, right? So, I mean, we were lucky, like we picked something which kind of worked out, right? But I'm sure
Mhm.
we could as well be wrong, right? I mean, what's the odd of picking up the right space, right? So,
Mm.
um, but yeah, I mean, like growing up, as I said, like I was very passionate about engineering, manufacturing, technology, and then with the internet world, I was starting to become very excited about the role of e-commerce and supply chain and how that will change the country for the better. So I think Moglix became like coming together of e-commerce, coming together of manufacturing, coming together of like the global thinking. So I felt like this is something that I will probably continue to enjoy 10 years out. I mean, like I feel like we're just getting started. I think the next decade is actually the exciting decade. Even though we had
Mhm.
a lot of fun in the first decade, but like I think the next decade is actually the
Absolutely.
fun decade.
Uh,
So
eh, mm. Anything inspired you to start Moglix?
no, as I said, like entrepreneurship is always on the card. Like
Yeah.
so 5 years into Google, I felt like I knew what I needed to know. I mean, the incremental value of anything which will affect entrepreneurship was probably very low. My daughter was 2.5, my son was 7. So I think we said like we'll pack up our bags, move to India, and start the company, and we'll be closer to home, right? Which, anyways, like as I said, our family is all about like staying together, and that's that's the first step of definition of happiness.
So where were you then when you thinking of starting
So
Moglix? You were
Google, I
in.
spent most of the time in Tokyo and Singapore. So last I
All
was
right.
based in Singapore for almost 3 years before we moved back.
So if people don't know anything about Moglix, because our audience are not just in India, um, what's Moglix?
Yeah. So Moglix, we are a B2B commerce company for manufacturing and industrials sector. So we sell almost a million SKUs across 150 categories of products. There are almost 20,000 suppliers which sell on our platform. And we sell to customers which are largest automotive company, largest steel company, chemical, pharmaceutical. When they want to buy products to run their manufacturing plants, they come to Moglix and buy those products. So we service almost 700 large enterprises, 500,000 SMEs again in India, and present in 5 countries as we speak, and continue to expand internationally. But India is like obviously the larger epicenter for us.
So at the time, I assumed that the manufacturing space was pretty low on technology. They weren't very technological driven, and I imagine there must have been a lot of skepticism, and it would have been very slow to kind of change people's mind. How did you like? What did you learn about resilience during that period of trying to transition it and kind of reshape a very incumbent industry?
So I am a general believer in solving hard problems which are large. So therefore, typically persistence is not as big issue for me. Like I do not wake up saying that if I'm not an overnight success, then I'll like, then what the hell
Mhm.
am I doing in life, right? Kind of a thing. I Early in my life there were several like deep technical challenges where like I had to literally sit down and try and solve that for like 6 months. Imagine you were given a maths puzzle and you could solve that puzzle for 6 months and you're like every single day trying to solve it, right? So I've been that way trained to be able to sleep with the problem and sit on it, and I derive some amount of joy from the fact that uh, if there is anybody who can solve this problem globally, then I can solve this problem. So, I mean, the problem has to be worth solving for. So that's important criteria. But like, I'm not afraid of solving hard problems. Um, so yeah, so when we started, there were like people who said like maybe this cannot be done. B2B has relationships. B2B has
Mhm.
certain amount of people with misaligned incentives, kickbacks, blah blah blah. So and then we are just going to be poor technology adopters and things like that. But then we would go back and ask this question like, but do you think, I mean, this makes sense? The answer was like, yeah, it makes sense, but like, we're just too lazy to do it. I'm like, yeah, maybe there's like 10 years and then you'll retire and then the next generation may not be as lazy. Um, or the fact that in consumer, we saw and actually derived a lot of comfort from the fact that if consumers are adopting technology, consumers are coming online, consumers are buying goods. I mean, like the same consumer is a business buyer as well, right? So at some point, we'll go and show him like a slide like how do you order your taxi, how do you order your food, how do you order like your iPhone, and then what do you do in a professional life? And I had this like vivid quotes like maybe people leave their brain at home when they come to work because
Mhm.
they just want to be dumb 9 to 5 and do silly things, right? I mean, so and so we would make all those vivid jokes about and in our own subtle ways, kind of plant it, and then people don't want to look bad, right? I mean, like that's a human psychology.
Mhm.
So so you start to have people change, and then they'll start to come up with objections, and then it's like, oh, what happens if this objection is solved? Oh shit, I have to come up with another objection, right? Otherwise, I have to do it. So I mean, like those are journeys of, but it is always a journey that I've seen also in Google days. I mean, like when I joined Google, I mean, YouTube monetization was very low, and not many advertisers were spending money on YouTube, and people were like, we spend money on TV, and who comes to YouTube? And maybe people come to YouTube to watch all that crappy content which people produce. I mean, that's not high quality content that we want our ads to be placed on it. So you understand that adoption curve theory, and then you start to figure out like how do you sort of narrate those stories, and how do you sort of like overcome those sort of naysayers and blockers and champions. And I mean like so I mean like again, education teaches you some of these concepts. Practitioner, if you pick up those concepts, you kind of can see through those concepts, and then you can try to find solutions towards it, and then you keep moving forward.
Mhm. Mhm. And what was the uptake like? Like, how long did it take before you got your first order?
So that wasn't a lot. I mean, like we launched in July of 19, July of 15. So, and then we got the orders instantaneously online. I mean, like they're not, and then we started to see, I mean, some amount of traction in probably 12 to 15 months. It was not a lot, but it was some traction. But our one of the defining moments started to come when India went through a tax reform, because India was a very complicated tax
Hmm.
structure, and that happened in 2017. So I think that's when we started to see more tailwinds coming our way.
Mm.
So, I mean, 10 years, congratulations. I mean, you achieve amazing, results in 10 years. It's like a long time, but same time, it's such a short time in a business, right? So, I mean, in that during that 10 years, have you ever thought, okay, am I doing the right thing? Or you had a very, very, like every year on year, you saw that this is it, this is what I want to do. Like, you know what I mean?
So I haven't had a moment where like, is this what I want to do, kind of a thing. But I think there are enough moments like, can we do this faster, and
Yeah.
why does it need to take so much time, or like five conversations? Why? I mean, for me,
Mm.
logic is like a kind of the uh, strong anchor for me. So once I'm logically convinced, when I feel that the other person is logically convinced, then I'm like, why the hell wouldn't you do it, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
then the guy is like, oh, logic is fine, and then like I want to sit on it for a few weeks before and then I want to have four meetings before I sort of just make sure that I cannot find any more holes in the logic before I do anything, right? So those were like the tough moments. I mean, like
Mm.
frustrating moments because they're like people got to become more intellectually honest, and people got to become more intellectually sharp and fast. I mean, like
Mm.
because yeah, my ecosystem has a lot of slow people,
Yeah.
both on customer and supplier side, right? So you kind of like sometimes have to just be more patient and just sort of like yeah, not push people over beyond a point that they break.
I want to understand how important is raising capital.
So not at all important, I guess. The key question is depending on the company you're building, they're going to be like capital required or not required, and speed at which you want to build may have capital
Hmm.
requirement, may not have capital requirement. Start with again happiness, like, and what do you
Mm.
want to do?
Yeah. Exactly.
Then what you want to do may require capital, may not require capital, because
Hmm.
also the speed you want to do. So I guess, and then it's not in isolation, right? Because if you want to succeed, you have to think of like what's happening in the ecosystem, and like how do you attract talent, and how do you attract sort of like the right kind of partners to work on. So I think every idea, every space is different, and therefore the capital should be a means to the end, not the end. I believe from raising
Hmm.
capital perspective, and you'll have
And
like a lot of like myths and random shit people advise people, but I think it should be a means to an end, not a not
Yeah.
not the end, because we have seen enough
mm.
cases of uh, people sort of like chasing the wrong objective.
And how did you view it from Moglix's perspective?
No, so we early on realized this is going to require capital. This is not a
Mm.
space which will, because you have to build warehouses. We operate 58 warehouses across the country.
Wow.
We got to build like full stack supply chain, delivery vehicles, the technology software you're building equivalent to an Amazon, and um, these cost money, and then these are still thin margin businesses. So you can't sort of like assume that. And I didn't come from like a rich kids family where I'll put in
Mhm.
like a exorbitant number myself. So you got to have this comfort that you're going to raise people from external people, and you have to convince them that you'll deliver like massive returns for them. I mean, like our
Mm.
earliest investor has got like 80x in 10 years. I mean, or actually
Wow.
8 years. So I mean, like you can't have those kind of returns in most scenarios in life, right? So I would think like today, if I have all the money and I find someone who can deliver 80x in 8 years, like done. I mean, like you should put all the money there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are. And so that was the early choice that you will need capital, you will need to invest into building it, and yeah, you have to feel comfortable about it.
And take me to that moment that you guys hit a $1 billion plus valuation. And I want to contrast that to like the moment that you got your first order and you knew that this was going to work. What were the two feelings like?
So, as a personality, I don't take too much high or too much low.
Okay.
Okay. So I have sort of conditioned myself, trained myself, whichever shape or form. So I generally do not have extreme elation. I don't have
Mm.
a depression either. So I think
Yeah.
therefore there's like small peaks. I mean, like you get happy because like yeah, because and it also matters to your team, it matters to the family, and it matters to many people you love and care about and things like that. So and it feels like okay, you might be on the right path and things like that, right? So, but one, I mean, external validation for me is limited value. I think the first one is first capital raise was special. I mean, in some shape or form, because you like I've done something right in life, because while we have not fully figured out what we want to do, but we were given that capital and somebody kind of believed like you're going to do the right thing, because like we didn't have the prototype, and somebody just on the paper and the fact that I was doing it was convinced enough that if you're doing it, I kind of believe in it. So you feel good about the fact that you've been doing something right in your life, right? So I think that was a very exciting in that sense, that you felt like you've at least earned that respect and right from people willing to invest in you, believing that you're going to do something right. And we got Mr. Ratan Tata, who's like the probably the biggest figure that you
Wow.
can think of in India. Is the We are the only B2B e-commerce company invested in. I mean, he investing in a small check at that point in time in the first, again, very amazing moments there, because you just felt like you had blessing from someone that you really looked up to, right? So, and becoming unicorn, I think we became, interestingly, we are the 13th unicorn ever in India. Right?
Wow.
So from the history of the startup world, we became the 13th.
Amazing.
Like it was a funny number, right? So you're like, you're tagged with you're the 13th unicorn of India, right? In the
You're the
history of
lucky one.
unicorns in India, right? So, I think it's interesting because you feel. I think the biggest sort of like again moment of contention and I would say relief for me is like you feel that you have delivered value to a lot of people that you care about, like your early
Mm.
investors, people who believed early in joining you as a company, and so you've kind of lived to the promise that you told as a leader. Like as a leader, it is very rewarding because you feel that you've like people like I think in 2021 we were like maybe 800 people, so you feel that you've kind of gotten and you're making many decisions. I'm a single founder, right? So you're making many decisions.
Amazing.
So to get to that point, then they can have a certain bit of like a like a fancy car if they want to buy a fancy car, if they want to buy a house for their families. I mean, like some of those also we did. Some of our investors got some money out. I mean, like their investors are happy. So I mean, like you kind of have a nice feeling about that, and then you also feel that you in our case we are probably like the largest. I mean, in the segment that we play, we're like probably 10x bigger than anyone next to us. So we almost created the entire category by ourselves, passionate about the sector. When no sort of like a young kid graduates from college and wants to go into manufacturing. I mean, like every young kid wants to live his life with a laptop, right? So
Yeah.
we have gone and built a company which requires sweat and blood and like stepping out of the air conditioning and being a little bit of the steam chamber, right? So I mean, yeah, so it's a nice feeling.
Yeah. So you mentioned Ratan Tata, right? Last year, we were together at Harvard Business School when Mr. Ratan Tata passed away. I remember you were very emotional and you did a speech to all of us, just memory of Mr. Tata. And is that someone inspired you?
No, absolutely. I think so. I have this philosophy. I take inspiration from multiple people for
Mhm.
different qualities that they sort of represent and walk the talk kind of a thing. And I think he was very uh, sort of one of the most sort of like I think illustrious Indian to live to the spirit of building India, building manufacturing, and being supporter of technology. So I think that was like roots that I would. But in general, I've built a philosophy that I'm like. I mean, there will be a little bit of Jam that I would say like this is something very exciting about Jam. I mean, like I would love him for that, and maybe there's a small portion of that I will try to adapt in my personality. I mean, like similar for. So I have this sort of like this curious mind that I am, if I find a fantastic quality in a person which I admire, like or something, I try to take a small portion of that and see if I can, because I don't want to change my personality, but I feel there is all this sort of nuts and bolts that you can keep changing your own self, which makes you a better person, right? So, and there I'm
Mm,
not sort of like I need to
yeah,
be only following one person. Like there's so much of
yeah,
the friends at HBS that I learned from, and like there are different qualities
yeah, yeah.
around you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to mention because we were at the Tata Hall when Mr. Tata passed away. There was quite emotion not just to you. I mean, I'm sure that you met him, you had some association with him, and even for us, because he was someone that we all looked up to. He's such a amazing guy and represent India in a very positive way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Rahul, you mentioned their leadership, and I've got you quoted saying, "Before you become a leader, success is about growing yourself, and then after you become a leader, it's about growing others." And I want to understand over your journey from starting Moglix from nothing, how has your definition of success changed?
Uh, I don't think as much it has changed because I think there's a very deep rooted belief on like so we first anchor on impact.
Mm.
So impact is all about like customers, how many customers you are able to serve, because that's the closest proxy you think about like impact. Because if impact is not large, that means it's a smaller impact, right? So impact remains to me, which is about eventually building the size of company, size of number of people, size of the customers, suppliers that you're impacting. So impact remains a very key thing for me. And the second thing, in terms of people definition, is about are we able to create life-changing moments for people? Are we able to become like, I think there are many, many leaders at Moglix whose best career or best sort of like achievement in life is Moglix. And I think that's again very exciting, right? Because you say like,
Mm.
what's your biggest achievement in life? I think uh, I wouldn't be surprised for several hundreds of people it will be Moglix.
Wow.
So that I think is like you've taken a person like I mean like I have many many examples of young people uh, like this guy who joined us like pretty much data punching guys gone to become senior manager within the organization leading uh, 30 40 people. I mean like he probably never imagined he could get there, right? I mean like and um, so those are very interesting scenarios for me from the people impact because we generally tend to invest more and more into people. We like to grow within. We like to sort of invest into people. We like to kind of educate them. We run our own. Jam can relate to it, but like I have this like hundreds of frameworks which are some common, some different than what HBS teaches us, and then we create those frameworks. We teach them like the latest framework last year. We said like everything in life, everything in company. We want to become a public company. I mean, like there are three letters which can kind of think about like what you need to do as an organization. We came up with what we call as SSP. Like so, what matters is speed, scale, and profit. I mean, like if you think
Mhm.
about the commercial element of the company and long-term modes and everything, I mean, it is about this framework, right? So like every day you wake up and think about what am I doing for speed. And early this year, we sort of launched this 5V framework of thinking about. We said like every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, like you gotta step back, reflect. Every day, maybe 10 minutes, like could you have done better? Every week, you spend 30 minutes, like what can I do better? And every month. So I mean, like those are like simple, executable ways of making people think to become better versions of themselves, better version
Mhm.
of teams, better version of the company, right? So we keep on doing this exercise all the time, and HPS is interesting because then you find many of those sort of this first principle things that we are
Yeah.
coming up with. There's probably someone who's written an entire book on it, and they're like, "Oh shit, he copied from me." Uh, so
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
always academic frameworks. Which sometimes are there, but again, they're many a times more complicated than what may be executable in a practical life.
Mhm.
And Rahul, I want to understand, like you started off as a technologist and now you're the leader of a multi-billion dollar company. I want to understand from your perspective, like what that transition was like. And do you prefer where you are now, or do you still kind of wish you're the technologist that you are at heart?
No, see, I remain close to technology. I'm still very deep into designing products and be part of many product conversations, so on and so forth, and learning new technologies and getting into more and more verticals where I'm learning technology. So I think Um, so I wouldn't say that it's either or kind of a thing, because
Mm.
in this role I get to choose and spend time where I want to, right? So
Yeah.
there I was like, I could only do that. Here I can do X plus Y plus Z, right? So I think it is exciting. And then I think I continue to remain passionate about technology. And I think the company that we are building, that amount of technology we are using, there are obviously, in the role as an entrepreneur, you also have a lot of work on solving operations, solving people related dimensions and customer and so on and so forth. But those are also part of growing up as a person. So
Mm.
I think my appreciation for the fact that technology alone is not the difficult problem to solve has increased multifold, because I know a lot of problems are about people, people
Mm.
growth, people working in teams, people working towards the aligned objective of the company and the vision of the company, customers understanding to be able to design products, and understanding the incentive structures of different uh, economic stratas of people. I mean, those are dimensions of problem which I don't think as a technologist I would appreciate as much. I think my appreciation for all of those dimensions has gone up drastically, which I think is exciting. So I believe a lot more in psychology. I believe a lot more in economics. I understand more about people, and I think how basically that leads to constructing kind of the society and the world and so on and so forth.
Mm. I want to extend that question, Rahul. So, from a single founder, how did you build your business around people? Like, I mean, obviously, when you start a business, you believe that you know everything, right? So, handing over to others, delegate. What's the journey like?
So I think, fairly intellectually honest.
Hmm.
If I don't know stuff, I mean, like, I don't fall into a trap of sort of like, I know you, I know it all, and
Yeah.
I'll teach you. I mean, like, so kind of syndrome. So I've not had that syndrome as a individual. So I am okay to be surrounded by people, and I prefer to be surrounded by people who are good at certain things which I may not be good at, or I may not love or enjoy doing every single day. So in fact, one of those criteria is like, oh, this. I mean, like, everything needs to be done, right, in a company, right? You can't say like this is good, this is bad, or something. Like, everything is good
Hmm.
and everything needs to be done, right? You got to figure out creating your team so that, like, somebody who enjoys doing this, somebody who enjoys doing this, because, like, if they enjoy doing that, which is the happiness definition, they'll become better at
Yeah.
it, and then you can push them to become better at it, and that's how you create a better company, and that's how you create a large company. So I don't think therefore that was as much a boundary per se for me. And I'm very intellectually curious also, so I keep
Hmm.
on learning about every nuts and bolt, because I'm just genuinely curious to know it all.
Hmm. Hmm. And I imagine the startup phase of Moglix was quite a grind, right? Putting in huge work days to build it to what it is today. But I also know that you mentioned that your definition of success is a lot about happiness and also family success. How has that kind of life balance shifted from the startup phase to now?
So I think, as sort of strange as it sounds, I think I have worked equally hard over the last 30 years. So maybe, like, there will be a couple of days you just work more, but, like, I think I've maintained a far more, like, as I said, the happiness and depression, I
Hmm.
don't go through it. So my hard work has not been correlated to whether I'm an entrepreneur or working in an
Yeah.
organization. So I work kind of equally hard when I'm working in an organization. Like, so, uh, therefore, that dimension hasn't been sort of, I would say, that different. And it is still
So
not different. I'm like 6 days in office for the last 10 years. I mean, so I'm always in office. I prefer to work from office. So, so that way is, I think, and therefore I feel that the consistent beats the spiky.
yeah.
So if you're like consistently hardworking, then there is more chances of hitting the luck. and more chances of you beating someone who can work hard for 3 days and then he has to lays off, right? So yeah,
Mhm.
so that has been kind of the mantra throughout.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you also place a priority on family. So I'm wondering how you still have that priority when you're spending so much time in the organization.
Yeah, but I told you that it has been the same 30 years. So
Yeah. So
that's
everyone's
the
used to it.
norm. That's the norm that they're used to, right? Like I will work this hard. So my entire family is oriented towards like I'll be in office 9 to 8. Okay,
Yep.
then I'm at home, right? So and that's what I have been all through my life. So
Yeah.
so in some sense they are used to kind of that's my definition. And then we believe in work life continuum. So if I need to get something done, I mean, I'll get it done. If I need to work even on a Sunday, I'll do that, and then I'll do some. So I think, in some sense, because both are happiness and joy, you kind of like blend both of them into your life.
So apart from work, family, and also you're involved in your foundation, right? So contributing to others. Can you take us through, give us a bit of what you do with Moglix Foundation?
So Mowgli Foundation is still kind of early days. I picked it up during COVID because like COVID, we worked on bunch of stuff. I mean, we realized we were at the so we got involved in COVID, by the way, Jan 27, 2020,
Mm-hmm.
much before it came to India because we were part of supply masks to China. It's kind of unheard of in the history, right? Because like when
Wow.
China factories were down and they needed masks from India. So it's like we kind of had a pre-glimpse of it. So I think COVID became an interesting time because we were part of many, many efforts of both in Moglix capacity as a volunteer on building what we called as Action COVID team of VCs and startup entrepreneurs to solve for COVID problems, coming up with innovation and be part of building indigenous ventilator in India, indigenous oxygen concentrator in India, solving for supply chain challenges of mask, oxygen, various aspects. So I think that's when this thought came in that I don't have to wait for another 20 years to kind of like become like another Bill Gates or someone like, and then say I'm going to be completely doing philanthropy. I felt that philanthropy, again, in the third bucket of maybe in small parts, I'll start to do as much as I can. And and in different shapes or forms. So I'm part of CII Unicorn startup. I'm the co-chair for that. So I enable fostering startups creation in India. Um, Obviously, Action COVID team. I've been part of it. Then I started to sort of create a chair for within my alumnus IIT Kanpur, where there is an award dedicated to my grandfather on the best student in electronics engineering and innovation. So I think like we started to do a bunch of this stuff. Um, but again, I think there's limited time. So I think still the focus therefore becomes also again back to like the best form of contribution to the society is job creation. So I think continuing to sort of scale
Mm-hmm.
across multiple countries, across uh, multiple product segments. We launched Credlex 4 years back. It's one of the largest supply chain finance company also now. So there's so much to be done that I think just
Yeah.
keeping busy doing all of those stuff.
Yeah, you're creating amazing impact in a country like India. Definitely need that, right? People like you, leaders like you, helping that country. I mean, when you're a young engineer, now looking at some of, if you're looking at Google, looking at Rahul, I found some of the fascinating things that you've done, like 2019 Fortune 40 under 40 list, Forbes magazine Tycoon of Tomorrow, 2021 Entrepreneur of the Year Award, India Congress Award, 2023 Times Now Most Impactful CEO. As a young engineer, 20 plus years ago, have you ever thought that you will achieve this stuff?
Uh, Probably I didn't think about it. So I kind of live towards like, what do I do better? What do I do? Like, uh, I don't create that like that glamour I have to
Mm-hmm.
reach, and therefore like so. While I mean, since you asked that question, would I have thought about it? The answer is no. But like because I also was not thinking about that
Mhm.
life in
Yep.
that manner.
Yep.
So yes, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So if you ask me a question like, did I want to be an entrepreneur? The answer was yes.
Yep.
Like, did I care about like, will I become a unicorn or not unicorn or this, that? I mean, like, no, I wasn't thinking about it. I felt that I could create more impact because somewhere I felt that I could do things differently, and becoming an entrepreneur might give me that flexibility to execute those in a different way versus a corporate ladder.
But I mean, my question, extending question, how do you feel now, right? I mean, achieving, I mean, you can see you want to become an entrepreneur, but also you wanted to create that positive impact for others, right? Create jobs and things like that. You, how
So
do you
I feel
feel
very
now?
fortunate. I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, fortunate, blessed. I do feel that I would have done some good deeds in my past life and things like that.
Yeah.
The what the Indians believe in,
Yeah.
because none of this happens by just like you working hard. Because there's a lot of sort of like enabling ecosystem that kind of lifts you up or gives you the tailwinds and things like that, right? So I think this definitely I feel fortunate, and I think I also feel responsible because there's so many people, teams, customers depend on you to do the right thing, and therefore, and this is just the beginning, right? So I mean, like the next
Mm-hmm,
10 years
mm-hmm.
are going to be even more exciting and bigger. So so there is always also this paranoia like, as a leader, are you doing enough and are you stepping up enough? Because
Yep.
leading teams of 25, 50, 100, 1000, 2000 in multi countries, multi locations, I mean, like it's a different thing, right? So you're continuously sort of challenging yourself as a leader. Are you able to do a great job at leadership and next level of leadership as you build the company and contribute your whatever you can contribute to the world.
And Rahul, to all of the young aspiring founders out there listening to this, what is the single biggest piece of advice you can give them?
I mean, follow your passion because your passion will give you happiness, and then you'll do better at what you do, right? I mean, like, do not sort of like do something which makes you like sad and happy or like uh, cynical at the end of the day, right? I mean, do something which like end of the day when you go home, like you're like, oh wow, I did something nice and I'm like happy about it, and I want to go tomorrow and do that same thing or do it better, right? I mean, like because and this is all about the journey, right? Because
Yep.
if you're not sort of like enjoying and having those positive
Mm,
optimist happiness around you, I mean, you don't want to be a sulky human being because it doesn't
mm,
help you, doesn't help anyone.
mm. So, talking about journey, Rahul, what's next for Moglix and what's next for Rahul?
So there's lot to be done. The time is not sufficient. There is a world in chaos and distress. Almost seems like World War III. So I think we have an opportunity to create an impact. And every day I wake up, I think we have an opportunity to create 100x impact on India and the world. And I think, therefore, the question for me is always like, are we doing enough?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that always keeps you sort of curious, hunger, wanting to do more, bigger, so on and so forth, right? So I think we are in a very, very interesting inflection point in history of the world
Yeah.
where the world is being redefined and power centers are redefined. The philosophy of how world should operate is getting redefined. India has a massive role to play, and we as a, while a very small company, but I think we feel that we still can create more impact, right? So, and that's what is super exciting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And Rahul, looking back on this incredible journey, do you feel successful?
I don't think about it like that, right? Like so, like, am I again happy? Are we creating
Yep.
positive impact? The answer is yes, yes. Are we doing enough for the society? Also, I mean, yeah, maybe we could do more.
More.
So
Yep.
in that sense, if I was to use the combination of three parameters, I mean, like happiness, I think yeah, 4 out of 5. Impact, I think we 3.5 out of 5. We can do more. Society, I think we are just chugging along. I think we can do more there. So that would be my scorecard for myself. So, but total of it, yeah, we are doing okay.
That's such an engineer response. Got a check mark, and I love that. And Rahul, we could spend hours chatting to you, but I'm conscious of your time, so I want to wrap up. And throughout our conversation, I've been jotting down some ingredients which I think build your successful life, and I'd like to share them with you. The first one I think is, you mentioned it, persistence. You stick with the hard challenges even when they get hard. And I think that's something that's becoming a lot more rare, especially in the new generation. When things get hard, it's like, okay, there's so many more other opportunities out there. It's easy to go and pursue something else, but you find the hard challenges, which maybe other people don't want to, and you stick with them. And I think that's one of the key ingredients to your success. The next one is curiosity. And I think it comes from learning as a technologist, always learning the new research and understanding technology, but also, as you said, learning from people, whether it's the people you look up to, like Ratan Tata, or people you come across in your life, like Jam. I think you mentioned in there just taking core traits from people and implementing them into your life. I think that's something really powerful. Taking the best bits of people and the experiences that you come across in your life. The next one is, you're focused on yourself. If like you're not worried about validation from others, you're trying to do what's best and what's right for you, and in doing so, you're not like swayed off your course by what society expects you to do, or the input of other people. You can really drive after what you want, and I think that's led you to kind of the path that you're on right now. And then the last one is, you're extremely impact driven. I think we heard impact said quite a few times throughout that conversation. Everything you're doing is trying to drive towards having impact beyond yourself. And I think that's kind of a very selfless trait. You're always not thinking about yourself, but the impact that it will have on other people that are around you.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, knowing you, Rahul, you're a true leader. You're not about just you. It's all about creating that positive impact around you as well. I mean, we learn so much from you, and you're happy to share that your experience and knowledge as well. So you're all about not just developing yourself, also developing people around you. So that's also help you to grow and become who you are today. And thank you so much for your time, and thank you. We learned so much from this conversation.
Always a pleasure, I think, and I think it is important. I think while I feel COVID taught many people across the world many things, sometimes people have short memory. I think we got to really be continuously sort of reinforcing in our life that there are things that matter and there are things that do not matter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
things that matter are those happiness, family, and then the society, and how we are moving together into a better technology, better life, better environment, so on and so forth, right? So I think it's very, very important that we continue to sort of bring back the world towards like what really matters, and be at it. So I had an amazing time talking to both of you. Dylan, great to meet you. I'm sure you're learning all the positive traits about Jam. Otherwise, I'll send you like 5 things that you can learn from Jam, kind of a tutorial. And one thing Jam has to learn is Hindi. And maybe you pick few words on Hindi as well when we meet next time in person. That will be fun, fun conversation.
Yeah,
I
I know. I know. Every time I talk to you, that's the first thing you ask. What do you learn Hindi, right? So I got to do that. Yeah, definitely.
well, we look forward to catching up, Rahul, and thank you so much for this conversation. And for our listeners, if you got something valuable from this conversation, it would mean the world if you could go and subscribe and follow us on whichever channel you're listening to this on right now. And if you want to see more of our inspiring content, you can head over and see all of our episodes on our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. And with that, catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks,
you.
guys. Bye bye.